Okay. And we are live.
Yeah. RJ, you can say now konnichiwa. We are all very happy to have you here.
Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa.
Or well, actually,
Pause on the end.
Konbanwa, I think.
You're killing me. Okay, let's wait one more minute and I think we're going to be ready. How are you guys doing?
Very good, very
All good.
Awesome. You can see on the reflection of my window my
Yes.
bald head.
Yeah, and also like the computer
And
screen.
also really? The computer screen as well? I
Yes.
think it's covered by the RGB line, right?
No, it's not.
No.
We can see everything. We can see ourselves there. Like we just need like a better light, sorry, so we can fully see your head like all around. Now it's a little bit dark. You need more lights, so it shines.
And it shines better. Actually, I think I can fix this.
I was just messing around. You don't need to bring more lights.
No, but now that I realize I could do this.
Yeah.
Like a normal setting.
Yeah, we can still see your screen though, like so.
For my glasses, right?
Yeah.
No, not also, but and also because it's not fully down.
Okay. I hope I don't make too much noise because for those who don't know, I'm in Asia. I'm now in Tokyo. We're doing this very late here, so I hope people from other rooms don't want to kill me because of the noises. I live like a bat at night here. So, anyways, thank you for joining. For those who don't know, we have the alignment session. That is our weekly stream where we explain what's going on behind the scenes, what we're doing, try to explain some stuff about the industry, about Ethereum, try to share some of our knowledge and some of the questions that we have as well with our community. And yeah, it is to start always making more content in a video format that we believe is the best way to share some stuff, and it will probably have even more importance in the future. So we usually start with Mauro giving the engineering update, and then I will be explaining today what we saw so far in WebX Asia that is being hosted today and tomorrow here in Tokyo. And then Diego will be explaining some stuff that we're discussing Ethproofs. That Ethproofs is the group on Ethereum primarily to discuss CK development and CK related stuff on the Ethereum protocol level. So I think Diego can explain some stuff, and then Boris has a few questions prepared. And I think, Boris, you also, I don't know if this last week you participated in Ethproofs or not, but if you have a few things to share there, I think you will have your space as well.
I didn't make the call on Friday, but I'm going to watch the recording because those was very good. So
perfect. So Mauro, shall we start?
Yeah, it was quite packed the last week. So I have news on most of our subsystems. So the verification layer or the ABS has some work done on an upgrade, like to improve like concurrency and stability and some other things. Like it's a big refactor that we were doing. It wasn't the highest priority, so we were doing it kind of whenever we had some time to work on it. And it's finally finished and tested, and we stress tested a lot. It's now on testnet. There is a huge upgrade to the code base, and it's much more robust. It might be a little bit hard to see, but if you check the code base, now it's very, very simple and lean in comparison to what we had before. Maybe in the future we will do another round of improvements. I'm satisfied with the state right now. I think it could be better, but things could always be better. It's some very clean code. Leaving that aside, then we have the CK Arcade that we are always working in the bit on that. We finished like already some weeks ago, but we were doing like this feedback loop of getting feedback and improving the flow and the feeling of the system. We are still doing that. We did some PRs related to that, but the other thing we are doing is integrating with Circom. So before, like the only games you could play were on your terminal, or you have to go outside the browser, run the game, play the game, call the provers, and then go back to the browser. Now we are adding. We almost finished adding it. Like we just need some reviews. Some games that uses, of course, the Circom and WebAssembly to prove, and you can play and prove in your browser, and then send it to a line. So the flow is smoother, is much more cleaner for the user because it doesn't have to get out. The downside is that the games that you can make with Circom are probably a little bit less interesting because we get programming constraints. It's harder to develop. We have experience with that, so it wasn't quite a big effort, but it's not something that you can just pick it up, make whatever game that you find and make it CK. You have to think, do equations. It's more complicated. As I say, it's not a big issue for us. We did with Diego CKVMs in the past and some harder cryptography, so it's not that terrible. But if someone wants to build their own games, well, it might take a bit to learn all of this. And then we have been working a little bit more closely with Ethproofs team, with Sobra, that line of work. We have been supporting a little bit with the provers and the verification, so the more of the CK pipeline. Of course, more in a support role because most of the work is being done by Lambda, but still we try to help a little bit. Most on the prover side, and then on the integration with the line is very smoothly, was already there, but we are doing further testing. I think that covers it up at least in a high level, so we can continue maybe with another things, or if you want to ask some questions, feel free to do so.
I think, Mauro, the only thing I would add is we're discussing today with Eigenlayer is doing a migration from the testnet, and at the same time we will use that as an excuse so we can finish the integration live on testnet with some of the stuff that Ethrex is already doing. So we'll probably do a new deployment in Sepolia and we'll finish that part. So we test the full end-to-end completely live in a testnet. I don't know if you have any other comment about that.
Oh, that's right. I didn't include in the update because we were just doing that work.
I'm spoiling it. Yeah.
So a little bit of spoilers, but yes, we will be migrating. Right now we are deploying all the verification layer on Sepolia. We'll probably deploy it on Hoodie too. But wait for announcement. Like Holesky still has one more month to go, and then it will cease to be supported. So we will probably announce which number you have to use to test things in a line. Yeah, we need to check some technical thing. I think Sepolia might be nice for application because most people are using Sepolia. Oleski and Hoodie might be interesting to have because they are more unstable. They are usually the networks that stress test Ethereum, so you tend to have more problems. Like reorgs, and reorgs can lead to some failures. Like it doesn't in a line because we took care of that, but you only see that kind of behaviors on a network that is very on the limit. Sepolia is very stable, so it's so stable that you cannot test some behaviors that only happens in a stable network. So we will have some more news through the course of this week and the next one.
Perfect.
Mauro, I have a question. Something you just mentioned, that reorgs can be a problem on these less stable testnets, but you said that Align doesn't have to worry about reorgs, or it's something we took care of. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, weird things happens with reorgs, and I can give you some examples. And in the before mainnet, we had to solve this kind of issues. For example, Align works. The ABS has two main transactions, right? One that defines the creation of a task, and one that closes it. One will expect that the first go that a task finishes after it has started, right? But if there is a reorg, that's not true. If the account that made the transaction is the same, you don't have a problem. But this might not be the case because we have like a service of the ABS of Align and then like a big user or service that creates a task, and they are not the same people. So if reorg happens, like the task might be finished before it has started. And this is of course very invalid, like it doesn't make any sense. So what ends happening is that everything gets rejected and the proofs never get verified. We take in consideration that the scenario in our system, and proofs will get verified even if that happens. But you have that kind of weird behaviors, and they don't happen in a very stable network, but it might happen in Ethereum. Like one block reorgs are not so uncommon. Two blocks reorg happens once a while. Probably, I think the worst has been a 7, but it was long ago. It doesn't really happen, but you can always have a couple of blocks of reorg. Yeah, and then there are many other things that tend to fail when working in Ethereum. Actually, like we could do a workshop maybe in Buenos Aires, but for DevCon, you had things like notes telling you, "Hey, I received your transaction; it has been included," and then something happens and it's not there, right? So that's why in financial system you usually wait some blocks until to be sure that it is really confirmed.
Mm-hmm. Wait for.
We could do that, but the network will be very slow if you have to wait 6 blocks just to wait for confirmation. That's another way to do it. So all the time, maybe the networks tell you everything is okay, but you need to recheck after a while that everything was in fact okay. The happy path is when the networks tell you something went wrong, because then you know that something went wrong. The problematic paths are when the networks tell you everything is okay, and then you check 1 minute later and everything is not okay. So you need to start working to restore the state. Anyways, a lot of crazy things happen when you interact with Ethereum.
Okay, but the takeaway message is that we figured out a way to not have this affect our batches of proofs being verified correctly.
Yes, that's right. That is no problem. We did a lot of work to ensure that the system is reliable. and we are still doing it. But right now it's quite reliable.
Thank you.
Okay. I think I can mention a few things about WebX Asia. For those who don't know, it's a very big event hosted in Tokyo. It's actually an event that it was born outside of crypto, and I think it was, I would say, captured or conquered by crypto in the last few years. There are a couple of things that are quite interesting that May will share later. People, I think they will benefit from hearing Arthur's highest presentation. Also, the Prime Minister of Japan spoke at the event as well, and ZC from Binance. They all gave presentations. I think what it's showing is crypto is already in a stage where the biggest players in countries, financial institutions are already constantly talking about it, and they have a strategy. And it's very clear to see in all of the different countries around the world. Of course, the US taking the lead, but we also see that in Korea, in Japan, particularly in other continents as well. So that's one part. But then the other thing that I noticed in particular by talking with people in booth and trying to understand what type of companies are part of these events is real world assets. I saw two teams working in identity who are working with different type of financial institutions for solving KYC and AML problems between all of these parties that want to start interacting with crypto, but at the same time they need to facilitate their processes or sharing information between each other. The other thing that was quite interesting was that many of these people that I saw and new projects are building L2s instead of L1s. There were a couple of people who were still doing like some brand new L1s, but in most cases, people would rather have something that is on top of Ethereum than build their own system. And the people who I spoke with, I'm not going to mention the company because I don't think it will be good for them, but who I spoke and spent like 30 minutes talking to one of the engineers and product people trying to understand what they're building. They were building a brand new L1. Most of the answers of why they wouldn't do that on Ethereum was because there was not a stack that worked correctly on top of Ethereum that you could launch your own thing without asking anyone. And my question for them, it was not pitching a line, I was just trying to understand how they think and what's their value proposition. It's okay, but don't you think it's a matter of time before you have something that actually works? And the answer is, yeah, maybe, but we don't know who's doing that. And then I explain what is aligned and try to understand more, and even if what they're doing has nothing to do with us. But I think the interesting takeaway is many people build different things. I think in many cases because of economic incentives, and in maybe in a second position because it was not very useful. It was not easy to build on top of Ethereum in your own infrastructure and owning the whole stack. And I think we're breaking that. Like even if some people could say, okay, but there already exists a bunch of L2s. Yes, but the products are not quite good. There's room for something that actually works as we intended in this case. That is being able to launch your own L2 in one simple click or in as less clicks as possible with a platform that allows you to control the whole thing, or do it on your own without having to ask the team that builds the stack or the platform in order for permission to do many of these things. And what people were particularly interested is that in what I was mentioning is that this stack in itself, it doesn't take the normal trade-offs that people think about L2s. Because in this case, you can have something that is performant, decentralized, and interoperable. And many of them were like, okay, I didn't knew that was something that is possible. People do not know about base rollups. But they do know that in the past, when they tried to use many of these things, they didn't have these features available, and they didn't have the best developer experience. And we can actually do this because we're building a fully vertically integrated stack. We don't have dependencies in many other teams rather than Lambda, because Lambda is building Ethrex. That is the main component around everything we're using, right? So ETHREX is the execution client for L1, but also an L2 stack. And Aligned wraps it up in the services that we're providing, and we're productizing it and offering to our clients and to everyone that wants to build on Ethereum. So I think the two main points is the market will start realizing that you can have the best of both worlds, that there are new alternative solutions that do not require Arbitrum optimism. And this is something interesting as well. Many of these L2 solutions, when you want to use them and have your own stack, you need to pay a fee to the collective, like the Optimism Collective, for example. I don't think that makes any sense. Like, if L2s are going to be first-class citizens on top of Ethereum, why, when you launch something, you need to pay a royalty to a collective just for using the stack? So I think we're breaking that model because we're commoditizing that, and there's no longer. If the tech is a commodity, the business model needs to change as well. And I think we're part of that process of breaking many of these things. And many of these people were surprised. Many of them do not know anything about it. They just want something that is easy to launch. I think we're providing that. And they want something that doesn't require them to change their teams. Like one of the teams I was talking to, they do collectibles. They like create organization around Air Jordans, many of these things here in Japan. And they have their own L2 because they want to own their infrastructure, but they don't want to have an engineering team that knows too much about blockchain rather than more than what they need, right? So the easier this is to use, the better for their team, so they can do whatever to do what they're actually good at. That is building a product and improving their marketplaces and their businesses. So I think we're going to be part of a process that's going to be very important for the next stage of Ethereum, and we're on the right track. So we'll see what we learn tomorrow, but that's basically it. A lot of people building with real world assets, and many people using different L2s, and other people wanting to use L2s, but they didn't have an option that they were looking for, and I think we're offering that now. So that's a wrap up around the WebX Asia.
Very cool.
Yeah, super interesting. And I think, of course, this highlights why we are building like some things.
Yep.
Yeah, and the fact that people didn't trust perhaps the solutions we had, or they are difficult to use, or even have to pay fees or royalties for just using the tech. I don't know. It's not the idea.
No.
That's why
No,
everything
and they
is.
get vendor locked in as well. Many of the things we're building, when ideally when you use our tech, if for some reason we disappear, they should be able to still run their whole thing, right? That's the whole purpose of this.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is open source. I think people using Align like should be using it, or in this case, like the tech stack of Align. They should be using because they don't want a dedicated engineering team to solve this. Like it's easier, like
Exactly.
it's cheaper because you don't have to pay for the teams. But in case that they want to start putting all their money on that, like they could still use the same tech. Like we are not going to be stopping them. It's probably not worth it, but that's another discussion.
No, yeah, the option should be available. If convenient or not, that's a different question. Okay. Diego, do you want to start talking about some of the ETH proof stuff?
Yeah. So last Friday we had Ethproofs call number 4. The topic of this call was whether or not to enshrine RISC-V in Ethereum to analyze some of the advantages and disadvantages that it would have. It was a very long call. We had almost like 2 hours. And I think it got the attention of many people. At some point, there were around 200 people. Then, near the end of the 2-hour call, there was still like 100 people. So it shows that this was a very important discussion, at least for the engineering teams. We had like several talks on different topics. I think that first we had Justin giving like some updates in general. Also that Ethproofs has been presenting some ideas at ZK podcast, and I think they will engage more in social media and everything to explain this more clearly. Then he presented like some initiatives. One that is very important is the proximity gaps price. So the Ethereum Foundation is allocating up to $1 million for anyone who can prove the proximity gaps conjecture up to capacity. And why is this important? Because this has very precise implications for Stark security. Okay, so we know that there is this proximity gap, which was an idea introduced by Eli Ben-Sasson and co-workers, I think in 2020. Okay, and they proved, I think, it for a given range, and apparently Ulrich Habok has like extended the proof to the Johnson bound. Okay, so this gives us like more confidence on everything, but we still have to prove whether it is valid for the whole range. And this could reduce, for example, the size of Stark proofs by half. Okay, it would no longer be a conjecture, it would be something that is certain, and then we get like more confidence and we can reduce the number of queries and everything, and this makes Starks more usable. Also, this means we have a better understanding of all the building blocks. So I think this is interesting. It's also a lot of money. It puts this problem on par with several of the biggest open challenges in mathematics, like the Millennium Prize. So I don't know, it's really interesting. Let's see whether we can get the proof up to capacity. Then there was
Diego,
like some, yeah.
I have a few questions, so we can summarize this for the general public. Would it be correct to say that what we're seeing in the last few months, and in particular what you're saying, is many of the things that were in the theory that are now being proven and formalized, right? Like things are maturing, so many of the things that were certain assumptions that were made or whatever are being formalized even more regarding Starks. Is this correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You had like the early papers, they proved some things, but then conjectured others to get like smaller proof sizes and everything. But we've seen more people working on this since Eli proposed Starks in 2018. A lot of people have started like working on this, and so you get better results, more precise bounds. And it shows that, at least for Ethereum, Starks are one of the primary tools you have for scaling. Why? Because it has like minimal security assumptions. It only depends on hash functions and these things related to Reed-Solomon codes. Okay. In other cases, you are relying on the security of other things. Elliptic curves, you depend on the discrete log, and in lattices, you depend on problems such as shortest integer solution or something like that, or shortest integer vector. So I don't know. You know that discrete log is broken by quantum computers. Lattices, you don't know whether there are like optimal attacks by a quantum computer. But the other one, it depends only on hash functions. And quantum computers reduce the security of hash functions, but it's just a matter of increasing the digest you just double the size of the digest and you're back to your security level. So it's something that people understand more. Cryptography relies a lot on the existence of secure hash functions. If you break hash functions, then I don't know, or say goodbye to cryptography.
So Diego, just for people who are maybe trying to understand all of this, like a more introductory explanation maybe that I want to add is basically what we've been talking a lot about is that ZK is being adopted by Ethereum at every layer, execution, consensus. And you guys are talking about this transition that you were predicting and seeing over the past years of everything moving towards hash functions for different reasons, like post-quantum security. But this prize that the Ethereum Foundation is putting out is for a proof, a mathematical proof that can basically make hash functions more secure, cheaper, better, smaller.
No, it's not about hash functions. It's really more about codes, Reed-Solomon codes, which is like the main ingredient for these hash-based proof systems.
Yeah, I meant to say stars.
And so the problem is you have a proof for the result for a given range, but the problem is you don't have a formal proof that this thing is valid up to capacity. Okay, so you have an idea, okay, this works on this regime, but does this extend beyond that? I don't want to get like super technical, but the good thing is if we can prove that the conjecture is in fact valid, and you get the prize either if you prove it to be valid or if you find a counterexample showing it is false, okay? And that, of course, maybe restricts us to some parameter settings or whatever. But we expect that if we have this, then we can reduce the number of queries, have more confidence on the security of Starks and everything. So I think that is a very good initiative by the Ethereum Foundation. Of course, they have to then give like a more precise definition and everything of what they want to prove, because it's a bit subtle. But the idea is to work on that. Then, of course, there were like some updates by some of the VMs.
One last thing on that, Diego, but I think the point I wanted to try to get to and tell everyone is that this is important enough to Ethereum as a whole and Ethereum's future that the Ethereum Foundation is willing to put up $1 million bounty for this.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Well, because if it turns out to be true, then you can use this with more confidence and you reduce like proof sizes. This has also implications for the new signature scheme that will replace BLS signatures with a post-quantum secure alternative. So it makes every sense to continue working on this.
Okay.
Then,
Diego, sorry that we're recycling this because I think it's very important, but at the same time, I think people will not. It's not easy to digest. So this is important because we are making things more. CK is maturing. Is like a main component of the future and the present of Ethereum, and formalizing and finding many and finishing formalizing many of these things about Starks are important for the security, and the security that we also have in Starks in terms of how sure we are that all of these things work correctly. And by doing that, we also might get better bounds around Starks, that will mean that we can have things with smaller proof sizes and making things more efficient. Mauro and
Yeah.
Diego, is this correct?
Yeah, yes, I can try to summarize a little bit. The
Yes.
industry and our tech, we have decided that Starks is the way, which maybe some exceptions like Schult, but most of our tech is relying on Starks. That's a
Yeah.
fact. And the in the in our roadmap for the future, we have more parts of Ethereum that will be relying on Starks, either like the signature aggregation, or then if we go full on just proving execution and verifying the proofs. So it's a core part. Stars are provable secure. Like we have proven that they are secure. But it's not like with our current statements we cannot prove that they are secure. The only question is, can we use some conjectures that will allow us to reduce the work that we do to generate the stars or to verify them, but given some architectural choices, they are mostly the same. So can we reduce the work that we have to do even more? Because if we can reduce the proof size, then we can communicate the proofs faster through all the nodes on the network. So this is a huge advantage, and this is very important for Ethereum, because it's not only about proving as fast as you can, you also have to disperse the information through a lot of nodes, right?
Perfect.
So then we have that problem that Diego was mentioning. Like, we have some conjectures that they seem to be right, and with that conjecture, you can further reduce the amount of queries, like we say, and to make proofs smaller. But under such conjecture, we cannot prove that the stack is secure, right? So we are stuck in a sense. It's like, what do we do? I think most of the teams right now, they are just living with the conjectures. For the VDS proof aggregation, I don't think the Ethereum wants them. Like probably Diego has more up-to-date information. So they will have to go with the provable statement, and that makes proofs bigger. So yeah, this is very important to further like utilize the stars at its fullest potential and with very high confidence. I don't know if that may have helped a little bit. I hope we did.
Yeah, I think you guys have done the best explanation of why all of these things matter and where we are in the industry and why we are why the Ethereum Foundation is spending all of this money on this. So I
Yeah.
think it's very useful.
Yeah, and regarding Jolt, even though now they are using Dory as commitment, they have plans to switch to hash-based commitments, because that way they can ensure that their VM is post-quantum secure, and especially if Ethereum is going to ask people to have proof systems that are post-quantum secure, then it's a must. Of course, then, as we mentioned previously, one of the ideas Ethereum has to avoid like very critical bugs was having like different proof systems, maybe, or VMs compiling to different architectures and then getting like different proofs and ensuring that the computation is right if all the proofs are valid or a quorum of proofs is valid. Which is a way of, okay.
We'll touch on that point again with the question that Boris has.
May I add a little bit of context on that, Diego? I think
Yeah, sure.
we know, but most people probably don't know. Like most of our CK stack is using almost the same tech. They are all using Plonky 3. There is a bug in Plonky 3. We are done. Like, it doesn't matter if we put 5 provers on to prove Ethereum if they all use Plonky 3. It's the same thing. It's just like, of course, that there are parts of the code that they are not the same, but you have like a common part that is like a systemic risk. The other thing that most of them have in common, but probably all of the VM that are actually usable, they all use RISC-V. RISC-V is very good. But if there is something in the compiler, then we are all done. Like you break you put an exploit in the compiler and everything breaks. So to add resilience, we need to start like making different systems, and not having all of them using the same tech. So back to the Pro.
Yeah, it's more or less the same idea you have with client diversity. What you are trying to do is like avoid that just you get just one bug in some place and then you break Ethereum. Ethereum should be resilient, even in the presence of bugs in one of the parts. Then a little bit more on several things that they talked. We had Vitalik talking. He explained why he thinks RISC-V is important and did a breakdown of the proving costs that we have right now. For example, analyzing different blocks, what time is spent in serialization, deserialization, then on the execution and everything. And he believed that by switching to RISC-V, some of these things could be carried out like more efficiently. I think it was interesting, and it's something that he's been saying for some time now. Other things that were like really important to security, for example, there were some examples of fuzzing used in CKVMs and some new libraries that were being developed and how they found either completeness or soundness bugs, which is something that we are going to need. We still need to do more thorough security analysis of all the VMs. They've been finding like bugs in all of the VMs. They tend to have like very large code bases, and I think that we need to try to simplify a lot the design and everything, and also have like clear specs. No VM, I think, has a very clear spec. I think Nexus at some point wrote a considerable spec, but I think that we still need to improve on that front. Then there was like also some discussion on hardware acceleration, and some people saying that we are going to have ASICs to help us prove RISC-V. I think that these they are saying that these small cards could help prove like really fast, and also reduce both the cost for hardware because they are not that expensive, and also power consumption, which was one of the main concerns that the Ethereum Foundation had, because this limits decentralization. The idea would be that anybody can be able to, anybody can prove Ethereum blocks, and for that end you need hardware that is not expensive, and also that you are not consuming a lot of power. So I think this is something interesting. Of course,
This
maybe, yeah.
it's a very physical problem. It's like you buy all the CPU, you say, okay, I'm going to prove Ethereum. I have my 32 GPUs, and your socket in your house blows up because it cannot support enough current, right? So that's the problem. It's like he was saying to us like something like, okay, I have all the GPUs, but I cannot plug them in because my house doesn't support this
No,
code.
no, it's a lot of power, really. They were targeting 10 kilowatt, but that's 10 kilowatt that you are eating, or imagine 10 kilowatt hour every hour. I don't know. I don't use that much electricity. I think that every month I use 100 kilowatt hour. Here is 10 kilowatt hour per hour. per day. That is to say, the day has 24 hours and 30 days. So you are using like maybe 100 times the electricity I use. So just to give you like, your electricity bill could be like very, very, very large. Of course, I think it's also good that you have like different hardware acceleration options so that if one has a bug at some part, then it doesn't break everything down. Then there were, yeah.
I have a question about this. So yeah, that 10 kilowatt hour sort of benchmark that Ethproofs has put together. And for people who are listening and don't know what Ethproofs is, it's this initiative from the Ethereum Foundation to benchmark different ZKVMs for proving Ethereum execution blocks, because this is the direction Ethereum's going in, and there's all these different ZKVM teams trying to prove Ethereum. That 10 kilowatt hour benchmark was because that's something that people would have in their homes for like a electric car charging point. So it's something that could be feasibly, realistically found in a lot of residential addresses, for example.
Yeah, the only thing is Boris,
data.
you are not charging all the time your car.
Yeah.
You charge it from time to time, and here you would have like something that is
Always
being used. I don't know if all the time, but most of the time. So the
That's
electricity bill can be pretty expensive.
For sure.
And as Mauro was saying, not all residential places have like the necessary wires and everything to support this power consumption. Of course, I think that we are going to get there.
After real Solomon codes, like the next Ethereum initiative is going to be like portable nuclear reactors, so you can put it.
Yes, I want my Raspberry Pi validator running at home
with a nuclear
The
reactor.
good thing is that you will actually be able to run the validator. Like what needs more clients is like verifying the proofs, and that's what gives you the security. So the equivalent of the node is actually the validators that will verify the proofs. Those are very lightweight. Still, you don't want only one guy being able to prove Ethereum. So it's good to have a little bit of decentralization, but you don't need as much as with the nodes.
Yeah. And then there were like several talks by the different teams explaining like some of their advances or ideas. I think it was also good to have like a talk by Jeremy from RISC-V, because they were the ones like starting with this trend of building a VM for proving RISC-V based on the idea by Starkware of building the Cairo VM. Of course, at that time, they thought that it was best to build a custom instruction set architecture because provers were not that advanced. The stone prover was really a milestone, but in proving terms, it was like really slow. Now STU is over 100 times faster. And I think that, of course, conditioned many things. If your prover was 100 times lower, it made sense to maybe build a specialized ISA. But now that we have like many things, hardware acceleration and all that, you can actually prove RISC-V. People thought it would take like longer, but I think we are like getting there. As I was saying, if we can reduce the hardware requirements and everything, it would be something like massive. I think that another thing that is coming or would be nice to see is a streaming prover where you can actually keep uh, memory consumption really low. I think that would allow us to work even with weaker GPUs. And well, luckily that means also like lower power consumption. So overall, I think it was like really, really good, and we got like different like voices and everything. And there are going to be like further calls. I think that Justin provided like an overview of the future talks. Let me see.
Yeah, the next one's on native rollups on the 26th of September.
Okay, the proximity price, then some other alternatives, and the final one is about formal verification. And I hope we will see like some improvements in the coming months. And I think there will be a lot of activity also during DevConnect in Buenos Aires, which is something we are really looking forward to.
Definitely. And for people who watch our ZK news on Fridays or whenever, basically every week we have some ZKVM news. It all seems to be coming really quickly and constantly. Diego, you mentioned streaming provers. Jolt's latest release from last week. One of the things they highlighted is I forget the exact details, but it sort of opens up the possibility of streaming provers, which would be much better for client-side proving, or at least they said that in there.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not ready, and I think that really something I'd like to see about Jolt is using hash-based commitments, because then we have something that is post-quantum secure, and at the same time, we've been mentioning that Jolt has some things that make it easier to audit from a security point of view, which is that almost every operation is just looking up in some table, and checking that the table is properly generated just amounts to computing the table and checking that it is correct. Okay, you don't have to describe it by complicated constraints. So I think that is something that is like very interesting. At least I'd like to have one VM that works like that in Ethereum, then maybe another VM with a different approach. I think that we need diversity, and it would be good to have diversity also on the backends that we have. As Mauro was saying, Plonky 3 is really good, but if there is a bug in Plonky 3, the problem is it affects lots of places. So I think it's good that some VMs have their own backend for fields and everything. It adds like redundancy in the system.
I think we are very, very over the limit. So I wanted to add some little things, but I will not. But just two little things, very, very small. Is I think you didn't mention the OpenVM thing, right, Diego?
No, I
So
forgot.
for through right now, there are very, very few CKVMs that are fast enough. I know the people of OpenVM have said that they will release very soon the full prover CPU prover and the trace generator on the CPU. Everything should be open source on some weeks, and it goes as fast as the new version of SP1. And it doesn't use Plonky 3. So all of this make it probably the first contender, like for me. When I mean, you have RISC-V and SP1, but this is the first one that I see as a new fighter entering the arena, and it might make some noise. We will see. And yes, and if we have some time, watch Jeremy's talk. It's very good. Like it explains a little bit that maybe it doesn't matter that much if we use RISC-V or a specific architecture. It makes some very solid points. We can leave it for another talk, or if not, go and watch it.
Mauro, OpenVM, that's the ZKVM from Axiom that Scroll uses, correct?
It's the CKVM from Axiom. I'm not sure if Scroll uses it.
No,
I think
Scroll
so.
has their own. It's called Sino VM.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I thought I remember something about them implementing or switching over to OpenVM, but maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Maybe in the future they will switch. I'm not sure.
Well, I think we covered a lot of stuff. I did have a couple of zkVM and Ethrex related questions that I wanted to ask you guys while you're here. Maybe RJ, what do you think? Should we?
I think we should keep it for another day because
For
we're
another
all
time.
running over an hour. But I think we should do two things, Boris, and I think everyone here will be a witness of this. I think we should try to explain things like all of this knowledge that we're seeing and all of these trends. I think one Wednesday we should do not an alignment session because we cover other stuff, but on a Wednesday stream, we should have Mauro, myself, and Diego, and we should talk about many of these things in detail and why do they matter. I think what people should understand is, hey, this is actually important. You may not understand it; it may sound like technical gibberish and too technical, but it matters because what it shows is Ethereum cares about certain fundamental values and principles, and those principles are the things that actually made Ethereum worth. I don't know how much was the market cap of Ethereum, but it is important for the world because it has been showing the market that it's constantly evolving, and it has shown that the architecture that it has is resilient and highly available for the past decade, and it's showing signs that it's improving to even adapt to a future where everything runs on top of Ethereum. Like Ethereum is the most ambitious project on the internet, and many of these things are important because people in Ethereum care to make this the best infrastructure for the internet in finance and other stuff. So I think we should spend, I don't know if Mauro and Diego what you guys think, but maybe talk more in detail on why it matters and what's the trend, why formalization
Yeah.
matters, why diversity matters, and why this roadmap makes sense for what's next for Ethereum and for the world, because the world is moving
Yeah,
to
we should probably go a little bit more back and higher level. I think like the first discussion is why Ethereum is not doing what Solana is doing.
I think we should try
Because
to
one of the
cover
first
that.
statement is like why that approach has problems that this one that looks very more complex, let's say complex in math and other stuffs actually solves them. But it's harder to see because right now you don't see the solution. You will see the solution in some years, like it takes time to work it.
But that investment, what the market is showing, is that it actually matters. One of the main things out of institutions and many of these people are talking about is, hey, this had 100% uptime. That is important. They care. Like if you have your home money in this, the trade-offs are different.
Yep.
The people who will decide if their currency will be on Ethereum or Solana are not degens. There's going to be a CTO, a CEO, a president of a country, a finance minister that will think in a similar way that an engineer of Ethereum thinks. What's the worst case scenario? I'm running my whole monetary system in this thing. Do I care if it's the fastest or do I care if it's the safest, the most decentralized, and it has a lot of other attributes that it can actually scale and many of these things? Because if it doesn't scale, I would say your availability is not that high. It's high even if you want to pay the price for it, but it's not highly available for most of the people. So I think we should explain that because it matters, and it also matters for Align because it explains why we're choosing to build the way we're building.
Well, if we want to do Wednesday, I have already confirmed Diego as of this morning for part 2 on the history of ZK, or maybe the current state of ZK will be more the topic of this Wednesday. But if you guys want to be there too, I think that would be a great stream.
I think Mauro, you should be there for sure. I don't think I will be available this Wednesday.
Why?
And
I think like you could wrap the history of ZK, and then we can do another one next week. So
okay, let's do that.
Cool.
Yeah. So everyone, we usually do all of this stuff like this. we're doing this in a stream, but this is the way we realize something's a good idea or not, and we make decisions pretty quick, like this.
So you can vote like on the chat. Well, what should we do next?
Yeah. We are building in the open.
Yeah.
Code, open source decision making.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Thank you everyone for being here. Boris, do you have anything you want to add at the end?
No. Tune in Wednesday for more ZK history and deep knowledge being shared by Diego. Yeah. Stay tuned for more content around all the stuff that we've been discussing. And we'll see you next time.
See you.
Thank you,
Thanks a
everyone.
lot.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.